Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Fee. I'm a coder, which is a child of a deaf adult. You may have seen that film. I don't sing, but I do interview. And I mean, in this, video, I'm on it to sit down with the man, the myth, the legend. He's real. He's sitting right in front of me, the amazing Mike Flanagan. I've gotten to interview quite a few directors, but I don't think I've gotten to interview someone who just has the pure credits that Mike Flanagan does. So allow me to take a deep breath and list them all off. The director behind films such as, no, I won't go that fast. The director behind films such as Oculus, Absentenia, Hush, Before I Wake, Ouija, Origins of Evil, Gerald's Game, Doctor Sleep, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and most recently he directed Midnight Mass, and next month comes The Midnight Club, which arrives on Netflix. How impressed are you with that intro, Mike?
Very, very impressed. And I'm amazed you managed to get all that into one breath. Good grief.
I know,
That's
yeah,
a,
I'm talking so quick. So sometimes all these old family members say you talk too fast, but it doesn't matter, all right? I just listed that all off the top of my head. I didn't have a sheet, any help, anything like that. Like I was just practicing that in my bathroom mirror. That's all off the top of my head. So, you're
wow.
probably
I don't think I could do that off the top of my head. I really don't. I don't know the credits nearly that well.
but there you go. So I mean, so many different things to talk about. But I mean, man, you are one of the busiest people in the world. That's probably fair to say. I mean, you have project after project. I don't even know how you do it. So my first question is, how do you find the time to sleep? Do you sleep, and have you ever experienced sleep?
I sleep very little these days, very little. I wanted to make movies for so long when I was growing up. It was like all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That when I finally was able to do it, I lived in terror that it would all just go away. And so I dealt with that by just always making sure I had the next thing lined up. And so I intentionally just never took a break.
Yeah.
But I'm finally getting to the point in my life where I can't do that anymore, because it's really you're right, I don't sleep, and I miss my family. So I'm starting to finally kind of slow down to try to spend some more time at home and see
Yeah,
my
I
kids.
mean, should there ever be a time for it? But no, I mean, man, you have so much, I mean, new projects coming out. I imagine some of these you've been working on for a while. And is it just now that they're all kind of seem to be kind of coming out in similar time periods that it looks like? Or are you genuinely shooting these all on kind of the close basis? Like, will you finish a project and you're like, okay, I know what I'm moving on to. What's that like?
Well, typically for at least the last half decade or so, when I finish shooting something and I go to edit it, I've
Yeah.
had a writer's room open at the same time. So I do my mornings writing the next thing with the writers, and then I'd be editing in the afternoon, and then go right into production. So they all overlapped.
Yeah.
Um, but now I'm finally starting to kind of relax. But the ones coming out that are in the pipe, like Midnight Club, we're just finishing post on like this week, and it comes out in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's cutting it really close.
Yeah.
Working on that for a couple of years, and then while I'm doing that, I'm in the cutting room doing Fall the House of Usher today. So it's like
Yeah.
it's
That's future
everything.
Mike's problem. He'll sort it
Yes.
all out.
Yeah.
That's my method for schoolwork. I say future Daniel, he'll sort it out. And then past Daniel has screwed me over quite a bit. But we take our victories where we can get them. But no, so were you a fan of horror films growing up? Because you look at your work and it's just the scariest things. I mean, possibly. And I feel like I've talked to quite a few comic book writers, and I mean, writing horror is its own thing. Because doing it visually is different than doing an action and a thriller because so much is atmosphere and sound and character building and as great as it is, you can't open a film and just have it be a jump scare because that's not really horror. You have to put so much into it. So I mean, how hard is it for you to constantly work on horror projects and still come up with things that are scary to this day?
Well, I was always a really scared kid. I didn't like horror when I was a kid. I couldn't watch it. I had to watch everything through my hands. So I really got into it because all my friends were watching horror movies, and I got embarrassed by how many times I'd pretend to be sick to get out of a sleepover if they were watching something scary. Like I couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
it occurred to me, like, if I was reading a scary story or watching a scary movie, I was teaching myself to be a little braver, just a little, like 1% braver, by making it through the scary scene or the scary movie. And I started to look at it as like little exercises in courage. And then I started to love it. Like then I started to love horror. And now it takes an enormous amount to scare me. Like now it's really difficult. I miss it. I miss being scared.
I if I just went like that on my camera. Just halfway through the interview, you're in the middle of talking. It's just, And then,
No, you are the first person who has ever jump scared me in the middle of an interview.
there you
Like,
go.
well
I can
done.
I can have that to my credit, halfway through. I'll make sure it just stops and I just kind of creep up there. But no, you've worked in so much genres. Is there a genre you'd even tackle? I mean, you've done vampires, haunted mirrors, you've done a slasher. I mean, what's left for you to tackle? Is there any monsters, or are you like, okay, I've conquered them all. There's nothing left for me.
I really want to do a werewolf movie one of these days.
Dude.
I really want to do that. I haven't been able to crack the right story yet.
No, that just writes itself. Werewolf movies. I mean, there's so much different things you could do. But no, your most recent project, House of Usher. I mean, what was it like shooting that? I mean, are you practical when shooting horror, or do you use visual effects? Is it green screened, or what does your process tend to be for shooting horror films?
I very much want to do everything I can practically, if we can. We only break out the green screen and the computers if it's impossible to do it another way. And I try to use it in a way that's invisible. I don't like to have like a big CG monster or anything. Like the most visual effects we used in Midnight Mass was in the second episode, there's that big long scene on the beach where all the dead cats have washed up. All the seagulls are computer generated because we couldn't control seagulls.
You're like seagulls. You're missing your beat. All right, you're missing your mark. Have I not explained this enough? You think we're paying you? What do you think you're paying you for? I assume we're like that. But no, it's funny you should bring that up because while watching Midnight Mass, what I really noticed was your use of oneers and all these ideas you came up with. And I was like, man, that must have been a pain in the ass to shoot because everything kind of has to work in its favor. And I know oneers is something that's kind of been utilized like by Spielberg and by some of the greats. So when you were deciding to do oneers, or for anyone who doesn't know, oneers is basically you're shooting a scene, it's just one take continuously. Did you just decide that would be best for the scene, or did you say it'd be cool to have? And how difficult is it to shoot a oneer?
It's so difficult. And you can't kind of decide to do it spontaneously. You have to, all of mine have been written into the script where I'll say on the page, this has to be done in one shot. Because it takes us weeks, sometimes months to choreograph it and get everything right and rehearse it. And with the Haunting of Hill House, we had that episode where it's like the whole episode looks like a oneer.
Yeah.
That took us 6 months to practice and to teach the camera operators and the cast and everything else. The one in Midnight Mass, by comparison, was much easier. It was only 8 minutes long. So we did that.
Only.
It was only 8 minutes. So we and it sees in every direction with the seagulls and with the tide. We only had a limited window when we could shoot because all our cats would wash away when the tide came in. So that one, I think we rehearsed it 3 times over 3 different days in the weeks leading up to when we shot it. And then when you shoot something like that, you get there, you hopefully have rehearsed it well enough that you can dive into it. But the second something goes wrong, you have to cut and start over. There's kind of no way to save anything. You have to get it all the way to the end once.
You were like, seagulls, I swear, seagulls, we've done 8 takes that you have to get it right. What are you not understanding? You're just throwing bricks at walls and stuff while you're shooting. But no, let's just jump right into it. I mean, Midnight Mass, I mean, one of my favorite shows. I mean, it's so beautifully written and it's just so brilliantly constructed. This is going to sound like a stupid question, but there were some really nice like scenery shots with like skies. Was that a real sky or was that, green screen?
That was a real sky.
How did you get it to look so nice? Were you looking at the sky with the camera? You're like, I worked with the seagulls. You're going to have to work with me here. I want maybe a tinge of orange coming up. I mean, what was it like? Do you have to kind of time that properly?
Oh my God. Yeah. So there's one shot that I love more than any other of our kind of sky shots in that. It's in the first episode of the guys are on the bikes.
Yeah, that shot.
It's insane. So we were just shooting at Gary Point Park in Canada. The clouds were up and we could tell it was going to be a spectacular sunset as we got closer and closer. And we just told the guys to get on the bikes and it was like, go, 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 go. And we ran with the camera and just had them go back and forth on the path until we kind of got the perfect light, but we were just running and running and running to catch it. Totally. And so yeah, that was, I think that's one of the coolest accidents you can get when you're shooting in the same place for a long time. But then we had another one where like you see this big red sky in the pilot when they're on the boat kind of loading everything up. And that one, we took a real sky that we filmed another day and we composited it into the shot of the guys on the boat,
Yeah.
so it is a real sky, but we had to kind of cheat to put it in.
Oh, totally. And so what another thing I love about Midnight Mass is character building, which is something that I feel is kind of hard to do in a film, especially if it's a horror film, because you want to have those horror aspects in it. But at the same time, maybe you can't spend the first hour introducing someone to this character. Do you feel that horror is easier to do in TV or vice versa? What's it been like for you? Because I mean, you've done quite a few TV shows. So what's that kind of adjustment like? And do you kind of prefer one, or is it just you can do different things in both?
It's harder to do in TV. It's harder to,
Really?
yeah, it's what's easier to do great character development in TV.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you have more time for that. But for the horror, like the tension and the atmosphere, that's harder to sustain over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So for characters, I prefer television. But it's much harder to kind of sell people on sticking with the characters that long in between scares,
Yeah.
For a movie, you can keep the scares going and the audience is hanging on the horror a lot more, but it's a lot harder to serve the characters. It's a lot harder to get good character moments in there because people just want the next scare.
Yeah.
So I prefer television for character, but it is more difficult to do horror on TV.
Yeah, I mean, like the character building in Midnight Mass, I feel is part to none. I mean, you see these characters, and sometimes I feel in films we see romanticized characters, but you literally introduce one of the characters, he does something really bad and he kills someone, and it kind of all sprawls from that. And like another thing like obviously that seems to come up in your work a lot is religion. I don't know if I'm an Irish lad, so is my religion up in the air now? Obviously being a Catholic myself, there's almost I feel like a line when you're doing something like religion, because it's one thing to shoot ghosts and vampires, but at the same time religion is obviously a real thing that a lot of people, I mean, if that's your beliefs, totally, but like a lot of people tend to get very, I don't know if defensive is the right word. So is it kind of different when you're exploring something like religion in TV?
Yeah, no, certainly. And so I'm an Irish lad. My family is from County Kildare.
Oh, you're
But
one of our own.
I am.
That's why we get
The
along so well, Mike.
generation moved. Yes, it is. It is. It was one of the reasons why when you first reached out, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna help an Irish brother out
I
here.
told
But
you that Irish charm works. No one believes me. It does. It's real, everyone. It's real.
it's absolutely real. And I was raised Catholic,
Yeah.
so you know, I think religion is a definitely it's a tender spot because it strikes at where we're the most
Yeah.
vulnerable,
Oh,
at some of our deepest held beliefs. Now, as I got older, I went further and further away from the church, to the point of atheism. But kind of to each their own on that.
yeah.
That's not something that I ever wanted to kind of uh, to penalize belief in the work that I did. But I'm fascinated by religion, and of
Totally.
course, being raised Catholic, and I was an altar boy for 12 years. It's part of my DNA, and I'm always endlessly fascinated with it.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Midnight Mass, my parents are still devout practicing Catholics,
That
and so
must
I
have
never
been fun. That must have been
it's really
fun.
fun. But I was really aware I didn't want to make a show that was going to offend or upset them,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be, I wanted to genuinely explore issues of faith and life and death because I don't have any of the answers. That's what happened to me is I just got old enough to kind of
Wait, you
feel
don't
like,
know? You don't know what happens when
yeah,
we
I know
die?
nothing. Yeah,
All
not
right,
even a little
everyone, this
bit.
has been my interview with Mike Flanagan. That's why I arranged this chat for. I just assumed you'd have the answers for me. But listen, I live to fight another day. There you go. But yeah, no, that's really interesting, I feel, because I mean, religion does make the world. I mean, people tend to be incredibly influenced by it. Sometimes,
Yeah.
obviously, for great things, for great reasons, but then people, I think feel interpret it wrongly and kind of use it for not so great things. So it's interesting when you can explore something like that in TV and in film. And also, let me just tell you this. I mean, the cast in Midnight Mass is fantastic. I mean, every actor is so perfectly casted, but there's one character in particular. He had just this beautiful line. It was Monsignor Pruitt, we're this way. He brought such, I mean, a gravitas to the role.
Yeah, no, I got to join the Screen Actors Guild because of that line.
They let you join the game. Oh, they'll let anyone
Yeah,
in.
I had to join the union because of that one line. I'll tell you, I really wanted to do it. We called the character. I had a whole backstory for him and everything that didn't make it into the show.
Evil twin. Is he good? Is he bad? You got to play
Yeah,
with that dichotomy.
well, I decided that his name was Pope Incognito and that he was actually the Pope in disguise and running away from assassons. And there's
How did
this
you come up with this? This
story.
is why haven't we seen this in your work before, Mike? You've hit this side of yourself.
And now I'm hiding this character. He also shows up in the Fall of the House of Usher. But
Is
you're
that
the
an
only person that knows
exclusive?
that. Yes, that is an exclusive. You are the first person outside of set to know that happened.
Wow.
But yeah, and Hamish, he's in his old Monsignor Pruitt makeup during that scene, and I say my one line to him, and I kind of turn him away to walk with him, and he would just mess with me take after take. Like he would jam his thumb into my belly button and be like, boop, as soon as I turned around, trying to make me laugh,
You're like the
to,
seagulls weren't this unprofessional. You were just
we
like that.
did more takes of that shot than we did of the seagull scene, like of that big oneer. We did 7 takes of the oneer. We did 13 takes of me taking Hamish and leading him away because he kept messing with me.
Yeah. It was a hard line. You had a very hard line to nail, and there was so much you had to bring to that character. I seen you locked yourself in your trailer. You said, no, you don't understand. All right, I'm going through. You go through that emotional process as an actor. But no, I mean, totally. I mean, the cast for that is firing on all cylinders, and also screw Screen Rant for what they said about the monologues. I loved them. I'm such a sucker. I'm such a sucker for good writing. Like honestly, I was so encapsulated. I like obviously being a comic book fan and reading novels and stuff like that. Oh, I kill for that. And you were I don't even know how you can come up with this type of stuff. It was truly amazing. But I do love Midnight Mass. And was that just you wanting to tell your vampire story? Is that how this all came together?
It's funny. It was more me wanting to tell my Catholic story. It was it's funny, so that show is probably my favorite of anything I've ever gotten to work on, and by a lot.
Yeah.
And it really kind of came about because I wanted to write about alcoholism and faith and all sorts of other things that are really personal to me. And that's really where that came from. The vampire side of it.
Is that as personal?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that it's like the vampire stuff is what we put into it to make it commercial, like to make other people want to see it. I could have written 10 episodes just of Riley and Father Paul talking about religion and about faith and life. Like that's what I wanted to do. The vampire
those scenes. Sorry to interrupt you. Those scenes where they're sitting down during the kind of alcohol night and they're just chatting. It's just some of the great stuff. And another character, I forget his full name. I think it's Joe. But he had, I'm sure. But Joe is this really amazing character. And there's this one scene where basically he did something to a girl a while back, and and he's just singing and he's in tears, and it's so beautiful. So do you kind of just poke your actors with like a taser and just say, start crying, come on, just start crying. The sea goes around working with you.
They compete with each other now.
Yeah.
So now
they want your attention. They want your appreciation the most.
They do, and a lot of them have been on enough of the shows that they're like, oh, so Hamish has got like an 8-page monologue. Like, how many pages is my monologue? And it's like, oh, yours is 5. And they'll be like, oh, well, then I'm gonna cry so hard. I'm gonna really like. They're constantly one-upping each other, which I love, but they kind of drive themselves into that.
So it's not your fault. You hold no legibility over anything like that.
Nope, no responsibility at all.
It's not me, baby. I signed a contract. They can't do anything to me. That's all I assumed. Is just everyone covering their backs. But something else I'd love to chat with you about is you're no stranger to adaptations in your work. How hard, and especially, I mean, you're adapting people like, I mean, Stephen King. I mean, dude, like, it doesn't get kind of hard in that. Like, I was recently chatting to David Hayter, who's a screenwriter. He wrote Watchmen. He co-wrote Watchmen with Alex A. And I'm not sure if you know, but Watchmen is this comic book that's kind of considered unadaptable because it's considered like the greatest comic of all time. Do you know anything about Watchmen?
Oh my God, yes. No, I'm a huge fan. And I think Alan Moore's graphic novel is the greatest graphic novel ever written. I agree it's unadaptable.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's the benchmark because I feel like if you're trying to kind of get compacted, that is possible. But like when you actually look at it in its entirety, I mean, unless you're doing like a 42-hour, mini series, and like you can't, he was talking about you can't change much because then you lose
Yeah.
Watchmen. And it's like, I don't think there's someone alive who's a better writer than Alan Moore, so how can you one up him arguably at his best? So what's it like for you kind of coming on to, Stephen King novels? Is there much of you saying to yourself, maybe I could change this? Or because I mean, you've made these changes and they've all been great changes. Like you've never just, done so like, well, put seagulls in it. I feel like it's right for the story. I've loved working with seagulls. So what's it like for you adapting these, novels worked on by all these great writers?
Oh, it's terrifying. And
Yeah.
especially Stephen King. Like, I do not want to mess up a Stephen King story because I'm such a fan. So like I'm always absolutely terrified because you have to make changes. Like, especially with Stephen King, his stuff is so sprawling and it doesn't fit into a movie very easily. You have to
Yeah.
cut it down. But as a fan, I see so many adaptations and I see the ones that like really don't work and I hate them. And I get all mad about the changes they made.
Where's the
And so I'm like,
seagulls? Where's the
yeah, where are
seagulls?
they? And it's like, why, how do I make it so that I am not the person who messes up a Stephen King book? And that's really hard. I was really scared with Doctor Sleep because we had to make changes to make it fit with the Kubrick
Yeah,
world.
because you there was obviously that dichotomy. You had to blend the two words. You had to kind of put in the novel by Stephen King and the film by Stanley Kubrick and kind of make it intertwined, which is completely its own thing as well, on top of being an adaptation. So I mean, you don't pick the easy work that comes to you, Mike. That's for sure. Anyway.
No, that's a fact. And I don't believe in picking the easy work, but that was tough because Steve hates the Kubrick movie. He hates it.
Does he actually?
Yeah, he legitimately just despises it. So I had to kind of say, I want to bring the cinematic language of the Kubrick film into this. And that means I'm going to have to make some changes, but I think I can make them in a way that restores some of the things that Kubrick got rid of
Yeah.
when he adapted The Shining. And that was the trade. And
And
that's
do you get to
what
shoot in
made
the
it.
Overlook Hotel?
Well, we built it. We built our own Overlook Hotel.
Budget shot the hell. Just budget. I want to. I'll shoot it with an iPhone. I don't care. I want it to look exactly like it does. But yeah, man, amazing. That must have been such a
Yeah,
fun experience.
it was the coolest. It's my favorite feature experience is that movie. And because there never was a real Overlook set. Like Kubrick built his own on stages in London,
Yeah.
and so we got all of his blueprints so we could exactly recreate his set. And when they finished building and dressing it, we would walk through, and it's like walking through your own memories of seeing that movie. And we had a big wheel built for the crew, so we could ride it through the halls like little Danny did. And we
So
all
that's
just
where
took
your
turns.
budget went.
It is. We spent way too much money on that, but it was worth it.
You were
And
like,
like you and
it's for the
Gregor rode in.
story.
Yeah.
It's for the story. Why do I need?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a bike? You studio execs annoy me. You're not understanding my greater vision. This is my masterpiece. This is my perfect symphony. And that was just you frantically explaining it to them. And then eventually you got your bike, so I was right in the world.
And when
I
the exec visited, they ride the bike. It like they'd be like, we shouldn't be wasting time while the cast and crew rides this bike around. It's like, well, do you want to turn? And like, well, yeah.
well,
And when
obviously that was
obviously I want to turn. And we spent like 2 hours the first day after we wrapped, just riding in circles. Everybody took turns. We'd film each other and run around, and like everybody felt like kids again. It was really
professionalism is alive and well. It certainly seems
yes.
like. No, but I mean, let me also ask you about this because this is something I found so interesting in your work. Are you building a Flanagan verse with all your different projects? Because you can keep that. That's your name, Flanagan verse. I put a lot of work or the Flaniverse. There you go. How do I do
Flanagan's
it?
great. That's great. Yeah.
But there's like a mirror that's obviously been used in a lot of your stuff, and then there's like in Hush, Midnight Mass, the book, the novel, and all that, and this all obviously ties in. So are you purposely just kind of building your own like little Flaniverse that you can look back on?
Yeah, it's because I love Stephen King. I grew up reading all those connections in his books, and so I liked to hide little stuff in mine.
Yeah.
I never intended it to kind of build a real world. A lot of it was just kind of little Easter eggs, but yeah, I love it, and I've heard that idea kicked around of like how the movies all connect. I heard somebody who was guessing that Maddie and Hush is actually Jesse's little sister in Gerald's Game, who you meet briefly. And I was like, great, that's fine.
That's true,
well.
baby. You got it.
Yeah.
How did you know?
And
It's like,
so yeah, I love that stuff, and I love when fans are rewarded for being fans, and that's kind of the thing is like if you can recognize it's like I spotted the mirror or this line or that character, it's just a little just a little pat on the back for fans to pay attention, and I love that stuff when I encounter it. So it's been fun to try to create my own.
and I love that you just brought up Hush. Now, I mean, I think maybe there's more of an element of relation for me than a lot of other people. Both of my parents are deaf. So now I lock the doors every night before I go to bed. I'm checking under, I'm checking everything. So thanks for that, Mike. Thank you very much. No, I felt like it was an amazing film. But what was it like? Because, I mean, obviously so much of it is visual horror. I mean, even just writing a script for it, I mean, it must have been so hard to kind of say, here's what the film would look like. I mean, it's words, you can't really deal with that visual component, and it's a slasher film on top of that. So would you describe Hush as kind of being a challenge?
Oh my God, yes. And it was from a writing perspective like nothing else I've ever done, because so Kate, who's now my wife, then was my girlfriend when we did that movie together. Kate and I were writing this together. We knew we didn't want there to be almost any dialogue in the film. The idea was let's make it as visual as possible, but we didn't know how to write that way. So all we would do was she would lock herself in our house and I would go outside and I would walk around the house in circles trying to find a way in or mess with her. And we'd kind of role play the movie and then come in and write down what worked, which made us look insane to our neighbors.
They're just driving by. Honey, is that Mike on the roof trying to break in? Yeah, probably.
I'm very glad nobody called the cops while we were writing.
That would have been a rough one to explain. That would have, if you ended up getting caught for that, that certainly would have been a rough one to explain. But man, Hush is such an amazing film. I mean, doing a slasher, I mean, it's obviously easy to assume you are a fan of like the John Carpenter Halloween stuff growing up, and the Friday the 13th films. And so, what was it like getting to really do a slasher in the same vein as all of those classics?
Oh, it was cool, and I love slasher movies. I'd never ever played with one before.
Yeah.
It was a joy to play with all the tropes and come up with all the things you have to think of with a slasher. Just how can this character just survive the next page of the script? Coming up with realistic ways to keep it kind of going. It's really difficult, but really fun. And we we made the decision early on to have him take his mask off so that we could have some actual interaction, which was a kind of controversial decision. Like some people liked it, some people didn't, but
it's so creepy. So I loved it. I mean, that's something different. I really enjoyed it. I thought that was so smart. But yeah, man, Hush is really amazing. But so, I mean, before our time comes near, let me ask you about your new project that comes out on Netflix. Is it next month?
Yeah, it's October 7th. It's called The Midnight Club, and it's my first young adult show. So it's something my oldest son is 11 years old, and it's the first thing I've ever made that he can watch.
Yeah, was he like, hey, can I watch one of your films? You were like, no, you can't watch that one. If you hate seagulls, you might want to watch this one. And then skip, you just all that. But yeah, so I mean, were you shooting this last year, 3 years ago? I mean, when were you working on this?
Yeah, we filmed it last year. We wrapped last winter, and I've been editing ever since. And as soon as we wrapped Midnight Club, we went right into prep on the Fall of the House of Usher on the same sound stages with the same crew. We just pushed down those sets and built the new ones. But it's a really cool show. It's different than anything I've gotten to do because it is for a younger audience, and it's based on a bunch of books by Christopher Pike, who was kind of the cool YA thriller writer when I was a kid. But yeah, it's a neat show. It's it's a lot of fun. But you'll see a lot of the people that you've seen in my other stuff. They come back, of course, in little cameos in this one.
Pope Incognito.
Yeah, no Pope Incognito on this one.
Why?
I know. I couldn't fit him in organically, but he'll definitely be around in Usher, and he's in his full Pope regalia.
And there's a sniper dot on his head, and he just slips it, and he's just like that, left, right, and center. That's what's been missing from your work. I truly feel like no assassins and all that. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, character building only goes so far when there's no one called Pope Incognito. So yeah.
I
So
completely agree.
so people, so you're literally editing. You're in the editing process of that right now, right?
Yes, this is the edit system for the Fall of the House of Usher right
Oh,
here.
I'm in the
Yeah.
editing room with Mike.
You are in the cutting room with me right now. Yeah.
So just play the first episode and we'll all get a first. Just play the Netflix might sue me, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. It's all for commercial gain and money. It's not for passion of film. I kind of just say it is, but it should be for money. But no, you edit. You've been editing like since before you've been directing, right?
Yes, I was a professional editor. That was my whole job, and probably the most important job I ever had. It taught me more than I ever thought I'd know about filmmaking. I learned editing,
Yeah.
and it made me a better writer. It made me able to direct at all. But I've been lucky enough to be editing now for 20 years, and I've only been making movies for a little more than 10.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's where my comfort zone is, and I don't have an enormous amount of confidence as a writer or director, but I'm pretty confident when I'm at an Avid. Like I'm pretty confident when I'm cutting.
Oh,
But
totally. I mean, I was chatting to, I know, well, I mean, I was watching an interview with Chris McQuarrie and he brought up this really brilliant fact about how, so many people think if you want to work in film, you should look on videos how to screenwrite, how to direct. Really, you should watch how a film is made and edited because you can
yeah,
just learn so much from that. So is that kind of your experience that you feel like just editing can be such an educational experience? And are you still learning things as a filmmaker or do you kind of know kind of everything you need to know?
oh my God, no, I'm learning so much. Every year I learn just how much more I have to learn. Um, and it's amazing because I really do believe all the decisions you make, writing or directing, or what the cast does, what the crew does, it only half matters, because the editor can change everything,
Yeah.
and an edit can make or break a movie. You can take amazing performances in a great script and you can ruin it in the edit, or you can take stuff that didn't quite work on the day and make it awesome in the
Yeah.
edit. So it's really, for me, it's where movies are made and the most exciting part of any project. But it's I wish more people I wish more people would learn it and sit at the machine themselves and really
Yeah.
just get the sense of building building the show, like taking the clips. And I used to edit on film when I was in college, and we have to sit there and cut our dailies and hang our selects up and cut them together with tape and glue. And that experience of having to think through every splice and every cut that you make with scissors, that was invaluable, and changed the way I worked forever. And now everything's computers, which is great, but I feel bad for people that never had that tactile experience of having to build it with their hands.
I'm sure those
Uh,
people are grateful that they got to miss out on that. I'm sure that they're not kicking themselves too much. But no, I think yeah, film really does get put together, and I mean a TV show especially does get put together. Is it hard for you to constantly come up with new ideas that are considered scary or just new character elements to build on? You kind of find that a difficult concept because you've done so much and yet you're still putting out these ideas left, right, and center. Do you struggle at all, or does it come secondhand to you?
no, I struggle, and you have to be ready for ideas to hit you anytime. Like I sleep with the notepad and a pen next to the bed, because often the best ideas I have are at 3:30 in the morning, and I'll just bolt up from a dream, scribble it down real fast, and then hope that I get it down in time that I can read it in the morning and keep it. Although sometimes I read that and it's just gibberish.
You
But
wake up, Pope Incognito and Seagulls. What? What does this mean? Did I write this? I assume that's and conveniently every single night that's how it is. Just
yeah,
firing all that. But that'd be yeah.
just fire them up.
So let me just ask you some random filmmaker questions. What's your dream project? What's your dream project? If I said you could do anything, is that an adaptation or is it one of your own works? If you could do anything, any film, what would it be?
My ultimate dream project would be to adapt the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Um, that
Yeah.
would be everything. Um, I don't know if I ever could, but if I could, that would be the dream project for me. And then beyond that, in a lot of ways, I have already lived that dream, because my dream growing up was just to make movies at all.
Yeah.
And I got to do that more than once. As of today, I'm still doing it. So it's, every day I'll go to set and people say, "How you doing today?" And my favorite way to answer that question is to say, "Living the dream," even if it's a shitty day or if I'm just in a terrible mood, just to remind myself that it's like, yes, this was the dream, and I'm very lucky that I get to do it. I hope I always do. Like, I hope I'm always able to do it, but this business is so fickle. It knocks people off the horse left and right, and it takes, one project to just sink your career.
So are you saying we're not getting Pope Incognito and the Seven Seagulls? That's a title I just came up with. The Seven Seagulls rolls off the tongue easily. Mike, I'll co-write it with you. I just maybe 2 million. That seems fair enough for a project of that caliber. We'll pitch it to one of the big ones. I don't know. I'm sure they'll take it. That stuff writes itself.
Netflix written all over it.
It's my Watchmen, baby. It's my Watchmen. We'll put some political ties into it. People eat that up. So that's my next one. Is there any genres besides horror you'd like to tackle? Or are you content doing horror?
Well, I am content doing horror. Like, if I do nothing but horror for the rest of my career, that would be just fine with me. I love the genre. I think it's important for the world that we have a safe place to kind of explore our fears and our dark side. I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
And to teach ourselves to be braver. I think that's what it does. But, I would love to play with different genres. I'd love to do a big sci-fi movie. I would love to do a Western. And I'd love to do like just a really wonderful family movie, like something that my kids could watch, like a Pixar movie. Like, I would love to do something like that.
Is that not Midnight Mass, though? Is it? I mean, is it, though?
I mean, for the kid.
Yeah, plus, no. I mean, you have that end of vampires strolling over. Just say, if you don't eat your green peas, this is what happens. You get your village burned down. That's exactly what happens. No, dude, I mean, I feel like you could tackle so many genres. And the Western, that's a fun one. I was chatting with Scott Cooper, who directed, I don't know if you've seen the Western Hostiles with Christian Bale. And it's just an amazing Western.
Great.
And and I was saying to him, like, I kind of feel like nowadays superhero film. Obviously, I wasn't rocking about when John Wayne was shooting people back in the 60s, but I feel like obviously films have gone through a change. Nowadays, superhero films seem to be the new Western as opposed to back then. And he was like, yeah, he agrees with that, but he does feel like Westerns are kind of making that resurgence. So would you kind of agree nowadays that superhero films seem to be kind of the new type of Western?
Yeah. And, the Western was the lifeblood of Hollywood for decades, but now it is absolutely superhero films. Like, that is what is holding up the entire theatrical model right now. That will change someday. It always does.
Please be Pope Incognito films next. Please let that be the genre. Please.
That's what the world needs, because
it says so much about us as humans. Here,
he's
listen.
He's like Jason Bourne meets Wolverine, meets Iron Man, meets the Pope, which I think is fantastic. And he's a master of disguise. Yes. So,
and if we say it's about grief, we'll win an Oscar. That's how it works. If we say it's about grief, we make it family centric or something, have some bad thing happen, it'll win an Academy Award. I can feel it tingling.
Yeah, what's really incognito is our own grief.
Yeah. You said it. That's how we put it up. That's the tagline. That's the tagline. Mike, it has truly been an absolute and genuine honor chatting with you. Before we finish up, actually, let me ask you one more question. Would you ever do a superhero film?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. I would love to. I have tried for a couple of years. When I was a kid, the movie I wanted to make more than any other was a Superman movie. It was all I wanted to do. And I've thought, why can't there be scary movies in the Marvel universe or in the DC universe? Why can't I do, Clayface movie or Scarecrow movie or something like that? That could be a really cool standalone in, something in the Batman universe, but let it be good and scary.
I'm getting this film made for you, Mike. I'm getting this film made for you. I have, say, 300 Twitter followers. Easy as that. But if you would do a Superman film, that's such a good one. Would you do it optimistic? Would you explore that side of Superman? Or Yeah.
I think, and no, I want to take, no disrespect to Zack Snyder's vision of Superman.
Yeah.
But what kind of strikes to me about Superman is the optimism.
Yeah.
Is in the face of a world that is not like that. Is that that eternal optimism and decency. You know, I think there are other characters who play tortured much more naturally. You know, Superman, I think, is a little different. And plus, I think what, you know, Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner understood in the original Superman movies was that Superman as a character is kind of boring because he can do anything. And so they said, well, the best movies we can make are actually about Clark Kent. And that's what made it great. And to me, that's how you do a Superman movie. Like, you approach it the way Christopher Reeve approached the first and second Superman movies, and focus the heart there. But
so cool. You've told me convinced it. You've told me completely. Let them ride a bike around. It works. I'm telling you. If you give them a little bike and attach a camera to it, you'd be so surprised. That works wonders. But I love your idea for like Scarecrow or Clayface. I didn't know I didn't know people in Hollywood knew who these characters were. And Condiment King, you don't know who Condiment King is, but I'm going to tell you who he is. He's this Batman villain from the animated series who shoots ketchup and mustard at people. So hear me out. I'm thinking a film plan, Condiment King and Pope Incognito, wrap it up with seagulls who have mustard and ketchup blasters on their sides. Does that sell in Hollywood?
Yeah, and it tracks because seagulls love condiments, so they would be all over them.
Common knowledge. Yeah. We're all taught this in school. So what you're really saying is that I should drop out of school, fly to LA and pitch it all, ride it all on this Pope Incognito idea. Mike, this has been very influential. I'm sure my parents will thank me. Thank you especially. Mike, it has truly been an absolute genuine honor, chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, sir. Before we finish, anything you can promote or talk about? Anything people should go check out?
Oh, no, you know, keep an eye out for the Midnight Club, October 7th. It'll be out soon enough. But look, you are a fantastic conversationalist. You really are. And I think it's so cool that, especially at your age, you are so proactive in reaching out there and interacting with the world the way that you do. I think it's so cool. So I'm really honored that you had me on your show.
Thank you so much. Like, as I'm sure you know, interviewing directors is obviously something, like, I've interviewed a lot of comic book creators, but film is its own thing, and I'm really passionate about it. And like, I'm taking, you know, like, obviously I'm taking these shots. And like, you look at the quality of work you're putting out. I kind of said, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna get a reply, but it's like, you know, just like a fart in the wind. I'll try, you know. And you got back to me, and you are immensely kind. You were just so, and you were complimenting me about my channel, and it really helps, you know. Like, it really helped me prepare for this. So truly, Mike, it really does mean the world that you would be so kind to me. So thank you so much, sir. Truly.
Oh, thank you.
Before you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that?
Yeah, you can on Twitter. You can find me at Flanagan Film. I use Twitter more than anything else professionally. That's where I do all my kind of promotion. And you'll notice if you go to my Twitter, I try really hard to use it to call attention to other movies, especially independent films, that I see that I am impressed with. It's a great platform to learn about like other cool indie movies that are coming out, and some studio stuff too, though they don't really need, you know, anyone else to amplify them.
Give them the little nudge. Mike Flanagan touch. Any independent films people should go check out, in your opinion?
Oh, you know, I just saw one called You Won't Be Alone. That's one of my favorite kind of horror adjacent indies I've seen in many years. A really incredible director, a neat story that's kind of a twist on kind of a witchcraft folklore tale. But beautiful film, and kind of like if Terrence Malick made a horror movie. It was really cool. But yeah, I recommend that. And there's a great movie on Shudder right now called Watcher that is a phenomenal thriller, like just exceptional and in every way, and by a fantastic young director who's just coming into her own. But yeah, so yeah, great stuff out there, and I'm always looking for stuff to watch. So if you see something that you think is awesome, be sure to let me know.
The Flanagan stamp of approval. Mike, thank you so much. Send me your address and I'll fly over. I'll give you my Pope Incognito script. 500 pages is what it's currently. I was writing it in the middle of this interview. You know, really groundbreaking stuff. Really groundbreaking stuff. It's flowing from me. I could say I'm the modern day Shakespeare, but that's unfair. I'm more than the modern day Shakespeare. Everyone, thank you, Mike, so much for me. Everyone, before we finish up, you can go follow me over on Twitter if you'd like, at SamboGizmo1. And also, please make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, link for the National Deaf Children's Society in the the description below. Every cent helps. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Go check out all of Mike's project. And Mike, truly, thank you so much for chatting me, sir. You know, one last thing before I get choked up. Pope Incognito and the Seven Seagulls might come out soon. You know, I'm getting a cease and desist. I can hear them knocking on my door. So that's a wrap on that. I got close though. That's all that matters. It'll be one of the great unrealized Hollywood projects. Mike, you legend, and everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.